Home is often synonymous with safety. It's the place where you can always find comfort and feel protected within the secure embrace of its four walls. It's that deep sigh of relief you release the moment you step through the front door. It's the familiar warmth that greets you and reminds you that this is where you belong. But for some, even home can carry an underlying fear. The unsettling thought of being vulnerable to harm, even in a place meant to be a sanctuary. It's a thought most people try to push aside, yet it lingers somewhere in the back of their minds. For 22-year-old Katie Sepich, this fear became a tragic reality. When she went missing after attending a party in Las Cruces, New Mexico, her disappearance left the entire community on edge. What unfolded next was every person's worst nightmare. Katie's body was discovered in a remote landfill, sending shockwaves through the town. As investigators delved deeper into the case, they uncovered a chilling truth. Katie's life was taken just outside her own home. In the perplexing case of Katie Sepich, nothing was as straightforward as it seemed. From the crime scene to the suspects and everything in between, the investigation revealed a complex and horrifying story. It would take detectives 3 painstaking years to uncover the truth. Even when the case was solved, the resolution was far from what anyone had expected. Welcome to True Crime Stories. I'm your host, Ty Knotts, your fellow armchair detective. Every week, I bring you gripping true crime documentaries, and if you're here watching, chances are this is exactly your kind of thing. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on my latest videos. In the beginning, Katie Sepich was born on December 26th, 1980 in Carlsbad, New Mexico, to her parents Dave and Janine Sepich. She was the eldest of 3 siblings, with a younger brother, AA, and a sister, Caroline. Katie was a sweet and caring individual, but as the eldest child, she naturally had a commanding presence. She was the kind of person who could make things go her way while still looking out for her loved ones. Her brother, AG, described her as his best friend and protector. Those close to Katie often spoke of her infectious sense of humor. She could crack jokes about anything, including herself, and somehow managed to carry it off with elegance and charm. Katie was a confident and likable young woman. She was popular among her peers, well-liked by everyone she met, and always carried herself with an air of positivity. At the time of her tragic death, Katie was attending New Mexico University, pursuing a degree in business administration. It was a fitting choice for someone as confident, intelligent, and level-headed as she was. She lived in an apartment on the east side of Las Cruces, close to campus, and worked part-time as a waitress at El Sombrero Patio Cafe, a lively and popular Mexican restaurant in the area. So, although she was focused on earning her degree, Katie was still unsure about her long-term plans. Her mother, Ann, recalled that Katie wanted to make a difference in the world. She just hadn't figured out how yet. Katie was also in a loving relationship with fellow university student Joe Bischoff, who was studying biochemistry. Their relationship was serious, and Joe had even given Katie a diamond promise ring as a symbol of his commitment. Though they were deeply in love, life pulled them in different directions after college. Katie planned to pursue her master's degree while Joe moved back to Gallup to start his career. Despite the distance, they remained close, visiting each other whenever their schedules allowed. However, Katie's bright future and their shared dreams came to a sudden and devastating halt on the night of August 30th, 2003. The night everything changed, on that evening, Katie, her roommate Tracy, and Joe attended a college party in a nearby neighborhood, about a mile from Katie's apartment. It was Labor Day weekend, and the group planned to have a great time and spend the night at the house where the party was held. The following morning, Tracy woke up to find Katie missing. Her belongings, including her purse, cell phone, and house keys, were still at the house. but there was no sign of Katie herself. Tracy and Joe searched everywhere and called her friends, but no one had seen her. Panic set in as they contacted Katie's parents to ask if she had come home unexpectedly. When her parents also had no information about her whereabouts, Katie was officially reported missing on August 31. The grim discovery. That same day, a group of locals stumbled upon a horrific scene at an old landfill in Las Cruces. They found a woman's body lying on the ground and immediately alerted the authorities. Investigators arrived and taped off the area. What they found was disturbing. The body was face down, partially disrobed, and bore clear signs of a violent struggle. Defensive wounds were present on the arms and face, and there was DNA evidence under the victim's fingernails. Adding to the horror, the body showed burn marks, suggesting that the perpetrator had attempted to set it on fire, but failed. Nearby, fresh tire tracks hinted that the body had been transported to the site by car. Based on the evidence, detectives concluded that the attack had likely occurred elsewhere before the body was dumped at the landfill. Although they hadn't yet confirmed the victim's identity, investigators feared the worst. Given the recent missing person report, they contacted Katie's father, Dave, to identify the body. Tragically, it was Katie. The investigation begins. Detectives quickly turned their attention to those closest to Katie. Her boyfriend, Joe, and her roommate, Tracy, were among the first to be questioned. Joe explained that they had arrived at the party together, but he hadn't seen Katie for much of the night. He assumed she had gone home early and only grew concerned when she didn't return the next day. Meanwhile, officers searched Katie's apartment for any signs of foul play. As soon as they reached Katie's home, they noticed something unusual. A pair of women's shoes was found discarded on the ground beneath her bedroom window, as though someone had kicked them off hastily. Those shoes, as you may have guessed, belonged to Katie. Looking up at the window, investigators saw that the screen had been removed and placed on the ground. The window itself was locked and no glass was broken, but the displaced screen raised questions. From this evidence, the detectives formulated a theory. Katie had indeed left the party that night. Upon arriving home, she realized she had forgotten her keys and decided to climb into her bedroom window to gain entry. They believed she was tired and didn't want to walk back to the party to retrieve her belongings. Tragically, they suspected it was during this moment that Katie was attacked. But the burning question remained. Who attacked Katie? Was it someone she knew? A random assailant? And why did she leave the party in the first place? These unanswered questions plagued the investigators. They decided to dig deeper and question Katie's friends again. That's when they discovered why Katie left the party. She was upset with her boyfriend, Joe. She had seen him kissing another girl. This revelation painted Joe in a suspicious light, not just for cheating, but because he had failed to mention this during his initial interviews with the police. When first questioned, Joe claimed he didn't know why Katie had left the party that night, but now it was clear he had lied. When confronted, Joe admitted that he was the reason Katie left the party. He also revealed that he had driven by her house later that night to check on her and claimed he tried calling her the following morning. This raised a red flag for investigators. Joe knew Katie had left her phone at the party, so why would he call a phone he knew she didn't have? To the detectives, it seemed like Joe might be trying to cover his tracks. At this point, Joe became the prime. The only way to confirm his involvement was through DNA evidence. In the early 2000s, DNA testing wasn't as advanced as it is now, but it was still reliable. The police wanted to collect Joe's DNA for comparison. However, Joe outright refused. To the detectives, this refusal was a major red flag. Katie's family was outraged. This was the man Katie loved, yet he was acting suspiciously, and withholding his DNA. They were devastated, fearing Joe might have been responsible for her death. With Joe unwilling to cooperate, the investigation hit a standstill. The police tested the DNA of every other male in Katie's life, but none of them were a match to the DNA found on her. Investigators kept a close eye on Joe, but he didn't exhibit any overtly suspicious behavior. This lack of evidence left them confused and frustrated. Months passed with no leads until the detectives learned that Katie and Joe had been intimate on the night of the party. They decided to test the bedding from Katie's room, and while they did find traces of male DNA, likely Joe's, it didn't match the DNA found on Katie's body. This discovery cast doubt on Joe's involvement, but the police still needed his DNA to officially rule him out. When they reached out again, they told Joe that his DNA would help clear his name. Finally, Joe agreed to provide a sample. When tested, Joe's DNA didn't match the killer's. He was innocent, though his actions had delayed the investigation by months. Joe later explained that he had feared his DNA would implicate him since he and Katie had been together hours before her death. While his concerns were somewhat understandable, his reluctance had come at a cost to Katie's case. With Joe ruled out, the police were back to square one. They now believed Katie's killer was likely a stranger. By analyzing the DNA further, investigators determined the suspect was likely a Hispanic male. Combined with the pickup truck tire tracks found near Katie's body, they had a faint lead to follow. The detectives reviewed known offenders in the area, while Katie's family offered a $100,000 reward for information. Despite their efforts, the case went cold. 3 agonizing years passed before a breakthrough came in December 2006. The killer's DNA had been entered into the CODIS database, and a match was finally found: Gabriel Avila, a 27-year-old man already serving time for aggravated burglary and assault. 3 months after Katie's murder, Gabriel had broken into a home armed with a knife, intending to rob and assault a woman. He was caught and sentenced to 9 years in prison. This conviction led to his DNA being entered into the system. Investigators uncovered more details about Gabriel. He had owned a pickup truck at the time of Katie's murder. More incriminating, however, was a piece of evidence his ex-wife had kept: a diamond ring. This ring, which Gabriel had once claimed was a gift, turned out to be Katie's, a gift from Joe that she always wore. When confronted in prison, Gabriel initially denied any involvement, but when shown the ring, he broke down and confessed. According to Gabriel, he encountered Katie while driving that night. He offered her a ride, but she declined. Seeing her walk home alone, he followed her and attacked her as she tried to climb into her window. Despite Katie's efforts to fight him off, Gabriel overpowered her. He later dumped her body in a landfill and tried to destroy the evidence by setting it on fire. In December 2006, Gabriel pleaded guilty to Katie's murder and was sentenced to 69 years in prison. Katie's family, while relieved to see justice served, was determined to ensure other families wouldn't endure similar pain. They advocated for Katie's Law, which mandates DNA collection for those arrested for violent crimes. This law, passed in 2011, has since helped solve countless cases. Katie's story is a tragic reminder of the random cruelty in the world. Yet her legacy lives on through the law named in her honor. Though her family continues to grieve, they take solace in knowing Katie's memory has made a lasting impact. Thank you for watching this episode of True Crime Stories. If you'd like to support the channel, consider becoming a member. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out other fascinating cases